Welcome to Birth at Work, the podcast where we dive into the real, unfiltered stories of what it's actually like to navigate pregnancy, birth, and early parenthood while building a career. I'm your host, Krislyn Powell. Each episode, we sit down with working parents who share their honest experiences, the victories, the setbacks, the moments of doubt, and the strategies that actually work. Because let's be honest, most workplace policies weren't designed with pregnancy and new parenthood in mind. And it's time we talked about what that really means for the millions of us trying to grow families while growing our careers. So today I have a solo episode and I want to talk a little bit about what my second pregnancy was like, which is actually my first baby that I carried full term. So previously you may have listened to an episode or seen me post about my miscarriage. That was my first pregnancy, and that was like a learning opportunity where I just had the realization of what work and life boundaries should look like, how I can better advocate and also communicate for myself and for my family, and what the picture of health looks like for me and why that's important. For my second pregnancy, I went into it just a lot more knowledgeable, but also scared. I want to share the story with you because I think it's important. Yeah, learned some things along the way, and there were some things that, looking back now, I do differently, and then also some things I'm just really proud of. So with my second pregnancy, which is my first baby that I had, I was thrilled. A little over a year after having my miscarriage, I got pregnant, which, oh my gosh, we were thrilled. I, again, had kind of doubted myself in my body that I could even, if it failed me the first time, how could I get pregnant a second time? But we did. So that was so cool. But it was actually at the tail end of it was beginning of 2021 that I found out that I was pregnant. And it was actually after I was really, really sick. And then, which I feel like that often happens. I feel like you get you're really, really sick and then you're like, oh, I'm pregnant. But yeah, and COVID had been rampant. The whole 2020 shutdown had been happening. Job at the time was fully in person. So I had switched jobs from the heavily event role that I had. I actually moved into communications and I was really excited to do this. So I was managing social media. I was also managing email campaigns and online community. And this was all in the residential and homeowner industry. And I was, oh my gosh, I was so excited to just kind of, as busy as communications is, to kind of take a step back, if you will, because I feel like events is worse. I'm just going to say it. I love events, but it's, oh my gosh. Yeah, after you run an event, you just can't think straight for 2 weeks. So I was very clear about boundaries going in. I was obviously with communications, I support the event team, but I'm not there for I can help with setup and everything, but I'm not there. I'm not staying there the entire event and tearing down and doing all of the things. It's that's what I had seen in previous roles with communications team members is they were there to capture whatever footage they needed to capture, but it was a partial time on site. And then obviously I did all of the other campaigns and management and committees and things behind the scenes and every day, kind of 8 to 5 sort of dynamic. And I was actually commuting quite a ways. We were living in an apartment when I took the job, and then we moved even further, another 40 minutes the opposite direction, because we purchased a home right before the market went insane, which was really just blessed timing, if you will. And it was so cool. It was such a cool time for us as a family. We were thrilled to be moving into this home, me starting this new job, lots of things changing positively for our family. And obviously we were trying to get pregnant again, but there wasn't a lot of pressure around it. So after all of the COVID-ness and navigating that, we found out we were pregnant, and I immediately checked into therapy because I was apart from the long commute, the new house, the new job, all of those pressure situations, I had decided after I left my previous job that I was going to start my master's program. And I was because at the time after my previous job, I left without another job lined up. And I was well, I might as well just start my master's program. And worst case scenario, if I'm just doing my master's program, it's fine for a little bit. But luckily I did, line up another job, and which was great. But yeah, I was bouncing classes. I was pregnant, new job, new house, all of the things. And yeah, I mean, life was good, but it was just a lot. But I took it upon me to tell my boss really, really early into the pregnancy because I was like, I want to map this out and plan strategically, and I just want to be really open and honest. And that's important to me. And I also want to like set the right boundaries because with the other job, I hadn't told them, I mean, like as a kind of natural thing, you typically don't share until after the first trimester. And then it was like at the end of my first trimester, I had a miscarriage. So, but yeah, going into this, I was like, sat down with my boss. It was like a month after finding out for me. I was like, hey, I'm pregnant. This is like really important to me. And my boss at the time, actually, they had like adopted, like, and had a young one. And so I felt like, oh, they can, this person can like really relate and understand like how important this is. And, they did reiterate their congratulations and that this is just like a phenomenal time and to take the time that I needed. And I had other central leadership support who were women who I called and they like shared about their pregnancies, recommended things like for returning to work to request to work from home for 2 weeks and then to have kind of like an adjusted schedule where there were work from home days a few months into coming back after leave. But there was no paid parental leave and no like benefits, if you will, for working parents. It was kind of like, okay, yeah, like FMLA's there since you've been with us for, or you will have been with us for over a year, and like you pay into short-term disability, so that's a thing. But that's like it. So just save your PTO. And yeah, so I was like, okay, cool. So I was saving PTO, but then, things came up. Like I had a relative pass away, another grandparent. And so, yeah, life happened. Like I had to go to that funeral. I had a sibling who was having a really, really tough time in life, and 2020 like really messed with them. And another good friend, very similarly, had some mental gymnastics going on with 2020. Oh my gosh, I had a couple of friends really go through it. So in 2021, I was like stalwartly going to therapy because I was like, for one, I need to kind of balance my family relationships and like set boundaries with family so that they know what I'm capable of taking on mentally and that like they can't fully lean on me to handle things for them. And like I had to be firm with those boundaries. And then also navigating feelings of fear coming up for, like worry that I wasn't going to carry the baby full term. And then there was a lot of education that was happening for me at the time of like, not only my schoolwork when I was getting my master's degree, but also like I'm going to equip myself and prepare the best that I can for birth. And I want my labor to go really smoothly. And so I like signed up for a birth class. I got a lactation consultant. I went back to my same OB, and was like really communicative with this person, was like, hey, I want this to go like really differently. And here are all the things I'm doing differently. And then I studied up on like important, nutrition, and supplements and activity, like physical activity that I should be doing while I'm pregnant. And I did like meditation and breath work with my birth class. And they taught me how to tune into my body so that I could have a more holistic birth, so that I could be, more aware and that I would be more relaxed and allow my body to progress steadily. And therapy was going really well. My job was going really well. I got like several awards at that job, which was really cool. I built great relationships and class was going really well. Like my schoolwork, I was getting A's, I was like 4.0, summa cum laude, like here we come. And it was all great, until it wasn't. Like a few months before I was going to have my baby, I started getting pushback from my boss of like, how can you afford to take this time off? Time off, deep breath. Wow, so many things. There were some other things going on at that job at the time. It was like I'd been there for, at this point, like, over a year, and was just kind of like, okay, there are some things that need to change. And I had advocated for those changes. I had gone through a cycle where I like should have gotten a raise, but then was told like I wouldn't get a raise, but like everyone else was. But then they were like also saying that someone that got hired around the same time as me wouldn't get one either. And I was like, that's great, but like don't tell me about someone else. Like that's personal information for them. I don't want to know. And then like asked about additional training and things like that. And yeah, that like that had been promised as well, and then like was taken back. And with my previous job, there had been like a lot of investment into training, and like every year I'd gotten a raise. So it's like, this is weird. This is not cool. And a few months before having the baby, like I had already been looking for jobs, but I'm going to be open about this too. I had been fully like openly interviewing with other jobs. And I was getting a lot of final interviews. But at this point, it was people were like still comfortable with you coming in person for a final interview. It was like far enough into 2021 that people were like, okay, we can like start inviting people back in to say hello. And so I would like do virtual interviews, phone interviews, like get through all the rounds, and then I would go in person. And I was like showing at this point. And so then these people who were hiring in committees or like hiring managers would see that I was pregnant. And I had been like racing through the interviews, and then I would get like some looks, and then like a few days later, like a day later, say, oh, we're going to go with another candidate. Deep breath again. So apart from the like, okay, the intuition of like, I need to be interviewing for other jobs because the culture and the dynamic at my current workplace is not great. I don't want to be commuting so far. I was like driving like an hour and a half one way. So 3 hours a day in the car. And then apart from being told, we think you're like, how can you afford to take this time off? Which I had already mapped out an entire plan, looped everyone in, had all the support necessary for them to be fine while I was away, and had told them so far in advance. For that to happen like a few months before my leave, I was just like really distraught and discouraged, disappointed, if you will. There was a lot going on. Yeah. Wow. Yeah. And I was still in therapy at that time. I was going like once a month, sometimes twice a month. And I was just like corporate frustration. And then I just started, like, I continued to do inner work and trust that something would work out. And then I was interviewing with like they were fully remote at the time. They had gone fully remote during COVID. And then when I was interviewing for a position, they were saying that they were going to come back into the office twice a week. So they were saying, if you get this job, you're going to need to pick 2 days a week that you come in. And these are the days that we like recommend, like more of us will be there, but you can pick whatever days, you want to come in. And I was like, shoot, like 2 days a week. It was like 45 minutes closer to me. So it was only a 45-minute drive. I was like, yeah, this sounds great. I really liked the people that I interviewed with. And then the job was like something that I was really excited about. It did have some event dynamics, but there was also like heavy on the communications. And then it was building an online community and maintaining that. And I was like hyped to jump into the online community space in a stronger format. So needless to say, the interviews went really well. I got the job offer, and then I disclosed that I was pregnant because, all of the other experiences of like disclosing before the job offer, I like wouldn't get it. So I was like, I'm going to just tell them right away after I get the offer. The recruiter was very, it was like interesting. And I think, the conversation with the recruiter was like, oh, well, we need to loop with the hiring manager and see what she says, but you should be fine. And so that was like a little alarming for me. I was like, I should be fine. I think legally you like can't withdraw well, I guess you could. I guess for any reason, like a company can withdraw. So, but I was confident going into the conversation, and I, spoke with the hiring manager, and they said, we are looking for the right person, and doesn't have to necessarily be right away. Like the timing can, shift a little bit, and you can take the time that you need to heal and be back with us when you're ready. And like you're the right person. And so I felt really good, albeit like what actually ended up happening is this company did not end up going to 2 days in office. The company ended up staying fully remote, which was like a huge blessing for me. But I hadn't been with the company for a year yet, and so I didn't qualify for FMLA with them, which only allowed me 6 weeks of short-term disability. But the company did also have a benefit where for baby bonding purposes, you get 2 weeks of that fully paid. So I got 6 weeks of short-term disability pay, actually only 5, because I think it says 6 weeks, but there's like a processing week, so you only get 5. It's so weird. And honestly, I will say too, I don't think that companies equip their people well enough before they go on parental leave. It's kind of like, oh, here's the insurance information. Good luck. It was hell trying to navigate the insurance company. Won't name names of the insurance company, but the disability insurance are like well, the short-term leave, the leave of absence company was really, really difficult to work with. I was like, this is very cut and dry. Like, it's a healthy vaginal birth. Like, yeah. And then I literally had to call them like the day that the baby was born. It was like the morning, the next morning. And I'm like in the hospital calling the insurance company, like, so dumb. Yeah, it was weird. And then I tried to organize all of that months in advance with a short-term disability company, and they like were like, well, we can't get back to you and finalize anything until you've like actually had the baby. Just weird. It was so weird. Yeah, I could only have 6 weeks, but I mean, timing wise and starting a new job, I was like, this is fine because it'll like give me enough time to just like take a little bit of a break and then come back and jump right back into the work, and then it'll be the holidays. So, get to take a little bit of time off for the holiday, which was like good. And the company also had unlimited PTO policy, which it goes both ways. It's like sometimes companies that have unlimited PTO, they always encourage you to take all of the PTO and they're really sticklers about that. But this company in particular, when I took some days around the holiday, it was like understandable. Like everyone was taking time off too. So, but yeah, 6 weeks was too short. I will just say, like in retrospect, looking back, I was happy to come back at 6 weeks at the time. I was like almost feeling like a kid when they're finishing up a holiday break or something and they're like ready to go back to school. But then I quickly realized as I started my work back up that it was just overwhelming as a new parent, and your newborn baby at 6 weeks is not, they're not eating on their own. They're not sleeping on their own. They're doing nothing on their own, really. It's like you are still around the clock caring. And so luckily my baby did nap really well, and I would put him in my wrap and I would take meetings. And the pumping situation was really hard though with meetings, and like I had portable pumps, but breastfeeding struggles came up, and I got mastitis twice because like I was just so exhausted. I had meetings back to back, and then sometimes I would miss night feedings, and then yeah, I ended up in the hospital the second time with mastitis. Gosh, that sucked. And then I was like taking antibiotics, and then I couldn't feed my baby that milk that had the antibiotics in it. It was rough. Man, if I could go back to that girl, I would just hug her. I was so tired and depleted. And had I had 12 weeks at least, that would have helped so much. And now, like, I think leave should be quite a bit longer than that. But wow, that was rough. And I know it's not uncommon. It's actually really common for women in America to go back to work at 6 weeks. And crazy. Like it's just wild to me that that's a thing. And then a lot of the expectation too is like, not only do you go back to work at 6 weeks, but you also are in person. At least for me, working remotely, I recognize the blessings of like having the capability to, even though I had all these meetings that I needed to attend because I was like a new employee and I was like running events too. Baby would be in the other room or whatever. And we did have like in-home care that came in too. I was just so tired. Oh gosh, yeah. It would have been better to have some supportive time. And even though 2 weeks paid was great versus the other company that was like nothing, good luck, you're on your own, and then questioning why I was taking leave, I still feel like this company like they were more progressive, but like not progressive enough to actually fully support working parents. So I'm grateful for what I had, but I would have done things differently if I could have. And, I think I did the best that I could, but I also think that I worked really hard to have this really healthy labor, which I did. I had like an amazing delivery and baby was so healthy and all the things. But then after, I just like didn't know what postpartum would be like. And I don't think that anyone can really tell you fully what to prepare for until you actually go through it. And the breastfeeding journey was just so incredibly hard. I would have done things differently. I had a lactation consultant that was kind of intense with me and not super helpful. And, we had our baby get a tongue tie release that didn't work. It grew back, and, we were doing all of the exercises, and I just didn't feel like any of that went well. And then, so the feeding journey was really hard. And then I just didn't realize the boundaries and time that I needed in that moment, in that experience, to heal fully. And so I was putting pressure on myself to go pretty much 1,000 miles an hour as soon as I got back. And there was no ramp plan when I came back of like, hey, let's slowly integrate you. It was just kind of like jump back into like all the things, which is not good for working parents either, especially moms who have just had a baby. So highly recommend if if it's your first, to obviously prepare for labor like I did. Maybe consider the timeline of communication that you have with your company, because again, like I said, I told them early, the other company that I was with, and then they had time to like change their minds about how they supported me, which I think, there's another mom that there's a guest podcast, that episode that we have with Angela Young, where she talks about how there's like a dichotomy, or just, I don't know, there's a push pull, there's a kind of happy medium for every mom in a certain situation of like when you feel comfortable to share that news. It's like you want to have your team adequately prepared for your leave, but at the same time, you also want to feel supported by your company. And sometimes telling them too early can make them think of you as a liability instead of someone that they know they need to support and enact the proper workplace policies to offer that for you. And it's unfortunate that that's the case, that like some news that is so exciting for us to share, ultimately ends up being like something that a company can weaponize against us. Like, it's just wild. And then the US's expectation on mothers to just come back at 1,000%, right away as soon as possible to be productive is also unproductive, because ultimately what ends up happening is like I experienced over time in my postpartum, like within that first year, a lot of burnout and extreme depletion. So much so that it was like, we wanted to have another child, obviously not like the whole, 2 under 2 is like kind of hard, right? So I don't think we were like fully looking for that, but we, after a couple of years, like we were trying, and it was hard for me to get pregnant again because like my levels were just so low and I was so depleted and had been most of that postpartum. And I just think back to like, if I had taken time to heal properly, if I had communicated, if I had known what postpartum would have been like, and also juggling work and, managing all these things, then I could have advocated for myself. But you don't know what you don't know. And I firmly believe that it takes a village and a community, and and like work leadership oftentimes is built of people who have had children, and they do know. And so they also know like they have to make budget decisions and be cost efficient and all of the things, right? But when you put productivity over people, you always lose. In fact, when you put people first, your profits go up. Yes, I could have done all of the things differently. And I actually think that pregnancy and postpartum went the best that it could, given what I knew. But I also feel that there is a responsibility for work leadership, for community members, for family members to lean in and support the mother. And I think that that's not something that necessarily exists right now in the United States. I think it exists in other countries. I've heard many stories from mothers in the UK, in Canada, in the Netherlands, in Sweden, talking about how long their maternity leaves are, how supportive their government structures are, what their work is like, how their communities lean in, and how it's different. Even like tribes in Africa, when a woman has a child, the whole, like the village of women lean in, right? So it's just different. And that's a culture thing. It's a production thing in the US. It's, we could talk about all of the ways that the US is different, and there are benefits to living here. And then we look at birth, and there are also struggles. So all this to say, I have the most adorable 3-year-old in the entire world. I love him so much, and we're so happy. I wouldn't have done anything differently with him, but if I could go back and hold my hand, I would have done a few things differently with the way that I navigated work environments and expected to be treated differently and advocated for that. Also, like the interview processes with employers who are interviewing pregnant candidates and the way that they treat them. Wow. I shared earlier, but so eye-opening. And I think that just indicated to me, like, this isn't a place I want to work. Multiple times, when I disclosed my pregnancy or when I was showing or when I talked about it, it's just like, until I hit that point where I disclosed after the job offer, and they were like, well, you're the right candidate. So like, we're moving forward with you. At that time, I also had that manager that was hiring me. She had a friend that was pregnant currently, and another one that was like trying to get pregnant. And so she had people around her that she could empathize with. And it was there was like a sense of community there, I think. So we can do better. And that's my hope, is like in sharing these stories and in understanding, I hope that you walk away with the knowledge and the power to equip yourself to understand that like it doesn't have to be, a certain way. And even so, like with my doctor too, and like going back to the same doctor that I had with my first pregnancy, that I was kind of like, he kind of told me like, this is the way it's going to go. And I kind of told him like, well, I'm studying different things to be prepared for birth. And we, communicated, but there was some like discussions that I had where I tried to advocate for myself. And I think I learned more along the way, like after this pregnancy, is just you can be your own advocate, and like don't expect, people to just give you everything you need or show you the way that it should, be. But work can be different. And the way that women are treated when they're pregnant and they're birthing and their postpartum can be different. And I hope that in sharing what my experience was like, that it looks a little bit different for you too. I mean, luckily I had supportive family, a partner and like great friends, but I just see the holes now of where it could be better. And I hope that it's better for you. And so I'd love to just continue the conversation. Happy to answer questions, be a resource, and try to make this better moving forward, because I think, you can do all of the things and then still not have people show up for you in the ways that they should in the workplace, in your community, in the doctor's office. So all that to say is like birth is beautiful, but there's a lot that we can improve on here in the US, and I'm here for it. Thanks for listening. That's a wrap on today's episode of Birth at Work. If our topic resonated with you, I'd love to hear about it. Connect with me on social or via email. Your experiences and questions help shape future episodes. Remember, you're not alone in this journey of balancing career and family. Every challenge you're facing, someone else has navigated too, and every victory you celebrate, big or small, deserves to be recognized. If you enjoyed this episode, please subscribe and leave us a review. It helps other working parents find these conversations when they need them the most. And if you know someone who could benefit from hearing these stories, please share this episode with them. Until next time, remember, you don't have to choose between your career dreams and your family dreams. You're already proving that every day. Thanks for listening to Birth at Work. I'm Krislyn Powell, and I'll see you next time.